Another Drive and Dish NBA episode where we will play some NBA Wordle. That we're going to make it make it harder for us this time. We're not going to look at the silhouette since that has gone negatively for us in
Yeah,
the past.
we're way too good at it, apparently. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like there shouldn't be a planet where we're getting two off the first guess right away. And so we just do.
Right.
It's like when you play your video games, you got to turn the difficulty up from rookie sometimes. You got to put it on all pro or whatever. So that's what we're gonna attempt to do a little bit.
So we're gonna do that. I crafted up some NBA this or that questions. So I'm gonna run you, Kevin, through those where you have to pick which one you think is more likely to happen or the one you'd be more willing to bet on happening. We'll start off with that. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Sarver news that has kind of dominated the NBA this week. A few other little news topics that we're going to get into too. The some teams making some acquisitions and picking up some other players. So we'll get into those. But let's start with the this or that questions. If you're ready, Kevin.
Yeah, let's do it.
So let's start with the first one. I think two teams that got a lot of drama around them. Let's go. The Nets are the first team with quote unquote off court drama in the NBA, or the Lakers come out real strong in the first 20 games of the season.
Well, the Nets already did it, right? Kyrie Irving posted an Alex Jones clip this week. Aren't we already? Haven't they already checked that box?
Well, wait. Once the NBA season starts, let's say that. Like it has to. So we have to get there.
We got to reset the Kyrie counter back to zero. And so my bad. What was the Lakers one again?
In the first 20 games of this season, the Lakers look strong.
Oh, I could see the Lakers one. I think is way more likely to happen, especially if they. I mean, we're going to talk Lakers later in the episode a lot more extensively with the news of them bringing Dennis Schroeder back. If they go defense and Anthony Davis is healthy, and they bring Russ off the bench, like I'm not saying it's going to be suddenly they're going to be back like about to win the finals or anything like that, but it certainly could be a lot better than it was last year, and just not the total train wreck.
I saw that they were, at least it was posted in NBA Reddit. There were some conversations that apparently they have explored the idea of Russ coming off the bench. I wonder how Russ feels about that, or you know what I mean, like where that ends up on the pettiness or angered player meter. But it does seem like they're going to have to do something different. And I know I saw it the other day. I think it was the Jazz were brought up in a potential trade partner with the Lakers for Westbrook. And I was like, I knew it. Damn it. Don't you do it.
The Jazz are insane if they do that. After everything they've done so well this offseason to reset that and acquire all these assets and build that war chest and look towards the future, that would be an absolutely insane move for them to bring in Russell Westbrook, unless they're getting a ton of picks.
That's what I mean. If you're getting a bunch of stuff attached to it, you know that the time that he's going to be there, you as a team aren't necessarily going to be competing anyway. Like I get why there might be a way to explore that. I just personally don't want anybody to bail out the Lakers on that one. So
well, it's the exile. Well, it's the exile, right? It's essentially what Houston tried to do with Chris Paul in Oklahoma City, except it just completely backfired because Chris Paul was wildly successful that one season in OKC and had those guys in the playoffs to the point where obviously that led to Phoenix going out and making the play for him. And we know how that's gone. Again, we'll get into Phoenix a little bit later with Robert Sarver, but with Brooklyn, obviously it could happen any day. I'm more inclined to think that I mean, like I said, Kyrie Irving, you just never know what's going to happen. Like every time you think it's just not going to do some more bozo behavior, he goes and posts an Alex Jones clip. Like it's just like be more unserious, Kyrie Irving.
But I also think with the Nets, like if they come out and say Ben Simmons is playing and Kyrie's playing the games he's able to play, although that conversation has kind of gotten quieter. Kevin Durant's playing, like they're coming out, they're looking good. I think that does hush a lot of the potential, problems that could be, going on in there. So I think that's a big part of it too. I think that's
and the role guys are fine. Like the role guys in Brooklyn, I like all the moves they made in the context of bringing everybody back. But yeah, I mean, which is crazy because like I haven't even factored in Ben Simmons yet at that point. Like we haven't even talked about
that's
that
what I mean.
plot line.
And if he comes out and he's like one of the best defensive players in the league. Like
If Ben shines, it would take a lot of pressure off that Brooklyn team and
right,
a lot of drama away from that Brooklyn team. Like they just need something positive. Like Brooklyn needs to get talked about in a way where it's like, oh, we're talking about them because they're winning basketball games,
right.
not because they're just doing constant nonsense off the court.
Right. Okay. Another one I got for you. The Orlando Magic will be the quote most improved team next year, or the Celtics will be the best team in the East next year.
So I have Boston at 2 right now behind Milwaukee. I do
Yeah.
think Milwaukee is and by better, I mean by the slimmest of margins. Like that's a
Right. Right. Right.
7-game
Right.
series to me, and I think Boston genuinely got better. I think Boston has a couple more question marks, and I'm always going to default to Giannis because I think Giannis is the best player in the world right now. Um, or like Orlando is tough because I think there are multiple improvement candidates. Like if Zion's healthy, I would think New Orleans
Sure.
takes that bigger step. And maybe it's not in terms of as many games it would be per se, but they would be a much more improved team.
I feel like Portland is another team that could be a sneaky, easy, like most improved team
Yeah,
because they were so bad.
Portland bounces back. I mean, Atlanta, from their perspective, with Murray's addition, could be a little bit in that way. The other one too is like Orlando's going to be going against Detroit. I feel like I've compared these two squads for the past 7 episodes, but I think Detroit could very well be that most improved team too. Like I think both of them will do that. I think the big thing for Orlando that you got to love over the past few weeks is just Franz hooping at Eurobasket the way he has. Like Franz looks like a bona fide like number one over
We
at
gotta
Eurobasket right now.
we gotta do that at some point, like redraft last year's draft and like see where things lay out for us. Again, I saw somebody do that on Reddit. And I think who'd they have going to Orlando?
At 5?
Dort. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. He's OKC player, if I remember
Oh,
correct.
you're talking about Josh Giddey?
Giddy, yes, Giddy went 5
Yeah,
at
I
that
could
point.
see. Yeah, here I'm just looking at it real quick. I mean, 2021. Yeah, this is a good draft already. Wow.
Mhm.
Um, I still think Cade goes 1. I think even or just it's either Cade or Evan Mobley. I think Evan Mobley's going 2. I think Scotty Barnes is going 3. And there might be Raptors fans who are mad at me for saying that, but I those
So
3 are for
this here
sure
I found the post, by the way. This was Bleacher Report did this. Okay, so Bleacher Report did this one. They have Cade 1, Barnes 2 to the Rockets, Mobley 3
to the Cavs still.
to the Cavs, uh,
Then Franz 4.
Franz 4, Giddy 5, Jalen Green 6, Kuminga 7. Yeah, so I mean at that point,
Yeah, I think I would probably agree with that. I think it's Giddy. I would think if Franz were to slip to 5, it would be Franz. But I
yeah.
think those two are a little bit behind Cade, Evan Mobley, and Scotty Barnes, but I do think they are above everybody else
Yeah, and
right
then
now, at least.
you got like Jalen Suggs down at 11 to the
That's
Hornets
a
on
good
this
top
one.
5. I'll tell you what, like, and
Yeah.
again, we're a long way from being. I mean,
Right,
that's a
right, right,
draft
right.
where we have no idea what their long term careers are going to look like, but that's a good, strong top 5 already. The way these guys have acclimated themselves in the league so far.
We kind of talked about the Trailblazers, so here's another one. The Trailblazers are back in the playoffs, or the Cavs are top 4 in the East going
I
into
think.
the playoffs.
I guess if you're asking me what do I think is more likely to happen, I would say the Blazers getting back in because I don't think the West is that good.
See,
Um,
I almost say I get what you're saying. I think both of these have like really high potential to happen, which is why I put them in there. Because if the East plays out like we think it's going to play out, fourth place to like sixth place could be one game. Like it
yeah.
really could be that close. So like it could be doable from a Cavs standpoint with the talent that we think they have now. Um, I just feel like with the Trailblazers, they'll probably be in the playoffs, but I think it might be a playing tournament type thing, just
Okay, so
because.
that was going to be my bad. Go finish, but that was going to be my
Well,
next question. Are you
well,
talking play in or are you talking playoffs?
that's what I'm toying with. I mean, I guess that at that point, you have to win the playing tournament to get in and make this work. You know what I mean? Like I think that's a big part of it too, which it's Dame. Like I trust him to potentially win that one game play, but it's like we've already talked about the West and the teams that we think are going to drop, but we've already named a bunch of teams that we think are going to get better. So it makes it hard to have all those teams making the playoffs.
Well, so
And
I
I
think
think
Portland
the
has.
Trailblazers are kind of in that mix of teams we've talked about doing that.
I think if we're talking play-in specifically, I think it's easily Portland.
Yeah,
I think because you have the top 10 right now, and always the question is who do you take out?
right.
I'm definitely taking Utah out, given that they
Yep.
blew the squad up, and I'm
Yep.
definitely taking the Spurs out post DeJounte Murray trade. And
Yeah.
so at that point, you look at who's most likely to replace them. I don't think it's OKC without Chet Holmgren. I don't think it's Houston yet. And so you've got the Lakers, the Kings, and the Trailblazers. And two of them are going to make it. So at
Yeah.
that point, it's like, yeah, I'll take my 2 of 3, 66.6% chance that they're going to get back in. Where the Eastern Conference, again, I think you're absolutely right in the sense that I think it's going to be separated by just a small amount of games. But
Mhm.
I mean, top four, I already think Milwaukee and Boston are definitively better. I would put Miami as definitively better as well. So that's three without even thinking. At that point, I'd take the Sixers, I'd take Brooklyn. I
And then
would maybe take
Cleveland.
Toronto as well. I could
Right.
argue Atlanta. Now, don't get me wrong, I could see Cleveland getting into that top four. This is not meant to be like if
Well,
Cleveland is top four, it really wouldn't surprise me. I love their top end
right.
of their roster.
So to
I
like
just if I'm betting, I'd put the Sixers there right now.
you're right. I kind of lean your way as well because like if they were going to be fourth last year, and I know it's kind of just to run off numbers for wins, how many we might be looking for potentially was 76ers with 51. Now again, they were tied with Boston and Milwaukee at 51. So really, like if the cat, like one win gets them to second place from that big jump, and I think that's where I am with it. Like if it's separated by that close, it's just one game at that point with the talent that Cleveland has. I think they can easily so they had 44 wins last year and were in ninth. 48 wins, four more were the Raptors at fifth. Do I think adding Donovan gives them at least four more wins? Of course. And so I think that gets them very close to that potential fourth spot. I
Yeah.
think they're going to be really close to that four seed. I think it's going to be like a down to the wire last few games type thing before we really know or would know the answer to this question, you know?
I don't think they're gonna be any lower than sixth, put it that way. I would genuinely be surprised if they're
Yeah.
sixth, and I'm more inclined to think they're gonna be around 5. Like, I do. I think if you're asking me to pick the top of the East, I'm going Milwaukee, Boston, Miami, Philly. And then so at that point, I probably have Cleveland at 5, but that's a big wild card with Brooklyn too. Like I could
Yeah.
very well see Brooklyn being that 5 or
Yep.
even the 4, honestly. Like I could see Brooklyn being the 4, bumping Philly down 1 at 5 and then putting Cleveland right there. But yeah, I think realistically they're in that 4 to 6 range. So I guess the question is, but to be 4, even if I just say, oh, it's one of these 3 teams, not factoring a Toronto who could, a Chicago who could, and Atlanta who could, okay, so I'm at 33% for the Portland.
Yep.
I'm at 66. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm more inclined to think with Utah and San Antonio dropping as far as I think they're going to drop. I think they have a 2/3 chance to get into the play in at least. Different with the top
Agreed.
8. I would struggle to see them top 8, but if we're talking top 10, yeah, absolutely.
Last one, you kind of just mentioned them. This or that. The Bulls are the number one seed in the East at some point again next year, or Luca leads the MVP race for a majority of the NBA season.
Well, I mean, the Bulls could be 1-0 at the beginning of the season, so I think
Okay,
that there
but
are
at
plenty
least
of
say after
situations. No, I
you have
know,
a
I
first
know.
10
Uh,
game sample size or something, like enough that it's not a one game thing.
I don't think it'll be the way it is last year. I keep going back to Lonzo Ball injury, but I do think that's a huge one. They will benefit from health a little bit. Again, Patrick Williams missed significant time last year. Alex Caruso missed significant time last year. Even DeRozan was banged up towards the end. Like I think you could just see the exhaustion with him more than others. Like they just lost a lot of games overall. And to that point, I think they're going to be competitive. Like they're going to be in the mix in this Eastern Conference. I don't think they're going to be one. Like,
Yeah.
I think they caught fire last year. Again, maybe if Lonzo's there, it's a little bit different, but I don't think there's any scenario. I think realistically, they're between, I think if everything goes right, they're around 4. But even that, I think they're probably like closer to 7 or 8, trying to avoid the play in range right now. They'll be good though. I don't want to make it sound like they're going to be a bad squad.
Yeah,
Luka leading MVP race, especially this year, because I think you'll get a little bit of a bump with Brunson leaving. If they're sticking around the way they are, I think he's clearly the number one option on that team. On a team where the number two option really isn't necessarily defined the way that some of these other elite
probably
squads have their number twos
Wood,
defined,
right? Woods.
or Dinwiddie.
Dinwiddie, yeah. Yeah, I guess it depends on how. I guess it honestly might depend game by game on the weakness of the team that they're going
I
up
think I know.
against.
I think it is too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think it 100% could be a lot of that. But no, I could see Luca easy. Luca's is he the betting favorite right now? He's got to be near it, right?
Let me
I mean,
look.
even without like while you're looking that up, I think it's. You look at Luca, you look at Giannis. I think Jokic won't get it just off fatigue this year. Like Jokic just won back to back. It would be really something if he won 3 in a row.
So this was okay. So this was published 4 days ago. I'm trying to see where they grabbed these odds from. It doesn't say. Okay, it just says odds to win the 2020-2023 NBA MVP award. Giannis is second. Embiid
Mhm.
is third. Luka's one at only
Yeah,
plus 425.
yeah, I would be inclined to think Luca is that way. Especially if he's looked good at Eurobasket. He
Yeah,
slimmed down, like he looks in shape. So yeah, I'm inclined to think that Luca is going to be heavily favored in that conversation. I don't think Steph Curry is a regular season player anymore. Embiid could very well be there again because obviously he's been the last 2 years, but I do think with Joel, you wonder how hard they'll go in the regular season. But if they're near the top of the Eastern Conference, I think you can definitely see that. Jimmy Butler is a sneaky candidate too. Again, if Miami's at the top of this Eastern Conference, I think he could be there. Jokic won't be again, I think, just off the fatigue. Like I think he'll put in that caliber season, but I don't think voters will vote for him for a third straight time.
yeah.
Maybe somebody, maybe if Memphis really goes crazy, you could see John Morant in the mix as well.
He was
But
there. I think he was like plus 4,000 odds or something like that on that list.
I could see Luca being the favorite though for a lot of it. Like I wouldn't be surprised at all if he won the MVP of the series. One of the best players in the league. He got a lot of people that like his game, so
Yep,
it's kind of the perfect mix of narratives that would all play out for him to have that MVP candidacy.
I
But
agree.
all right, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's play some Pirtle, shall we?
I'm down for some Pirtle. Let me share my screen here. Obviously, anybody that doesn't know, we do a video version of this podcast. You can always find us on Drive and Dish NBA if you want to watch along with the video version. All right, Pirtle. This time we're not taking the silhouette.
Yeah, we're not looking at the silhouette. We've been
I
really good about.
oh, I'm sorry. I saw. And here's my suggestion for our first player. Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
I saw a video of Serge Ibaka talking about a skincare routine. You see this where he was rubbing celery sticks on his face and chocolate on his cheeks. I
Was he
suggest
gonna
we go
bathe in
Serge
red wine like
Ibaka.
Amari Stoudemire next?
I mean, he might be. I don't
It
know.
wouldn't surprise me at
Dude,
all. Is that who you
he
want to start with though, Ibaka?
I want to start with
All
Ibaka.
right, let's do it. I like it.
All right, let's Ibaka. Oh, look at that. Easy enough. All right, Serge.
All right, bro, are you kidding me? Yo, what is going on, bro? What is no way, yo?
No way. Oh, okay. Well, we got it. That's amazing.
I don't know if you should go to Vegas tonight. Like, can you go get? Oh, it's not legal in Florida yet. Still, what's the closest state with sports betting?
Well, yeah, sports betting. I don't know. I'd have to go
Is
to
it
like I think
Georgia? No, I
probably.
don't think Georgia.
Dude,
I
what?
don't.
What
Dude, are you kidding me?
were the chances of that? They
And
must
the
have
worst,
seen. No,
no,
no, no,
no,
no, no. The
the
people that.
worst part is Justin. The silhouette probably wouldn't have helped there. I would have been able to get Serge Ibaka off the silhouette. I would have never
Dude,
got that.
oh my god, that's so funny. Like, here's the thing: is
I don't know what to do now, other than I think we need to retire Pirtle. We're way too good at it. This is insane. I was really looking forward to the challenge this week. How did you get this?
dude, I'm telling you, I think the Pirtle people watch NBA Reddit because why would Serge Ibaka be the one today? Like that's on NBA Reddit right now, so that's the only
Oh
reason I
my
could think
god.
that.
It might. I mean, that might make sense. I can't believe it was Serge Ibaka. Like, I genuinely, like, I'm truly, in 10 years of doing the podcast, this may be the most genuinely surprising moment
That was
that we have
wild.
had right now. That is absolutely insane. Um,
33, number 25,
we don't even.
6'10".
I
I
don't even
mean,
get to guess the conference. We got nothing. That
dude,
what are the? I mean,
what?
literally, like, how many players are in the NBA right now? Like, that's a 1 in. Oh, hang
Dude,
on, I'm doing it right now.
I couldn't even tell you, but that is wild. That's hilarious.
So, and this is even the COVID one. So that was a 1 in 450 chance, essentially.
Well, there goes that. I guess we can't
All
do this
right. Well,
anymore.
no, that's fine, honestly, because like I was like, oh, we're 20 minutes in, whatever. We'll play Pirtle. So much for not having anything to talk about. Wow, I am truly floored. That is remarkable. You need to bet on something tonight. I don't know what, but you gotta. Well, today's Sunday, so you got a lot of NFL to
I was
choose
gonna say,
from.
what's the spread on the Jags game?
Oh my
I'm going
god! I
Jags.
feel like you need to take like a first. What's the NFL equivalent of like a first basket parlay where it's like you get those ridiculous
Oh,
ones where it's
yeah,
like you put 12 players in and you win like
I'll bet like
150K.
I'll bet like Zay Jones on the Jacksonville Jaguars will have the first touchdown of the game.
Oh
Dude,
my
that thing
god,
would be
dude, it'd be
like,
loaded.
hey, listen, anybody watching this or listening to this podcast, if you are, you'll know because the game will be over by the time we put this out. If Zay Jones scores the first touchdown in the Jags game, I'm calling it. I'm 2 for 2.
I can't believe that was Serge Ibaka. I'm borderline so in shock that I don't think I'm going to be able to do the rest of the episode. I am floored.
It would not surprise me if someone tries to like claim that we looked it up.
Right, which we did. Like, genuinely, like I don't even have it up on my screen. Like, I could share my screen right now, but
It's on
I
my
got
screen,
nothing.
obviously, but I mean,
I want to play Pirtle. This is the thing, is like I don't enjoy getting it on the first guess. I've been trying to play for
it's
3
fun,
weeks
right?
now.
Like it's fun when you do the good stuff. Like I love those TikTok videos of people that'll do like cornhole or beer pong or something, and you get like maybe that's what we have to do. Like going forward, you and I do our own version of Pirtle. Like you pick a player, I pick a player, and we write down the hints that are on this for each other, and we see who can like stump the other one or something. And
Oh, we
we'll
might
make it
have
so it
to.
has to be like a starter, or we'll do
I
something
was
where
gonna say,
like
we might stump each other real quick. We start,
we
who's
can go
Oklahoma
deep.
City's 15th man right now?
We'd go real deep. Maybe that's how we have to do it. We'll just like play a game against each other instead of letting the game pick somebody. We'll pick somebody and go from there.
What a world. Welcome, everybody, to the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Justin Kuzart.
I'm thrown off. Text, FaceTime, or phone call?
Not FaceTime and not phone call. So I
Yeah.
guess text. There are certain people that can call me. Like, and I say that across, like, I don't like talking to anyone on the phone. So don't take it personally. Like, it's not you, it's fully me. Obviously there are certain key exceptions to that rule. FaceTime is fine if you set it up, but like don't randomly FaceTime me. Like, what do you like? Who randomly FaceTimes?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's any random FaceTime. I'll FaceTime my mom, but that's about it.
Yeah, family, like it's kind of the same phone call exceptions. Now, if somebody randomly calls me, obviously that's way different than like there's a chance I'll pick up the random phone call. There's no chance of picking up a random FaceTime. Like I'm more often than not going to think it's an accident unless you pre-scheduled it, obviously, because I don't think
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like some people really do use FaceTime like that.
I don't mind
I've
it. Like
never been a big FaceTime user.
if I'm talking to my parents, I like it because then like that we can see each other. Like I hardly ever see them, so like that's a big part of it. But
Yeah.
uh yeah, like I'll be honest, if Nicole FaceTimed me, I'd be like, "Uh-oh. Like what's going
Right,
on?" Like
right,
I'd be
exactly.
like,
Like,
"Oh crap."
right. Who's got the phone? Who's been kidnapped?
Or like
Like,
what did she what's broken at the house that she needs me
right.
to see to fix, like try to fix? Like yeah, that would be right where my mind went immediately.
Text
Um
is always number one because you can just respond to it whenever. Like,
clearly clearly Reggie Bullock, who was the person that we picked, by the way, is not a fan of that because that was his tweet. And I guess a bunch of people were getting on him because he said he'd rather a phone call. So his response was, I guess I got to get better at texting back. I understood you, but I mean,
well, I mean, I get that too. Like, and I have like recently, I guess, gotten worse at it where I feel like, and now especially it's bad too because when I go to class, I put my phone on do not disturb. So it's like
Yeah.
there's a chance I miss it. And again, I usually catch it and then I respond. It's just maybe like a day later, but it'll
I
be to
always
what you sent me. It's not, I care.
Yeah, well, you know me, I'm like, I'll go MIA for, like, 4 days and then finally
Oh
be like,
yeah,
"Oh, yeah."
Justin, I love so many things about you. You might be the worst texter of all time. It's
I'm pretty
remarkable.
bad
Like you're
about it.
up there. You respond though. You're right though. It's
I'll
always
get
about
back to
like,
you, it just might be
and
4 days
it's about
later.
what I'm talking about, right? And it's always before we got to record the podcast, so it's fine.
Right.
It's never a moment where it's like, hey, it's Sunday morning.
It's like,
Like, are
"Where
we
you
doing
at,
this
dog?"
today or
Yeah.
not? No, like we know what's going on.
But a lot of the reason it happens for me is, like, if I see your text while I'm doing radio stuff, like, right now, right, we're podcasting, I've got a buddy texting me, like, I've looked at his text, and then I put my phone down because 'cause we're talking. When the podcast is over, there's a good chance I don't remember he sent that text because there's no notification next to it, and I just go on with my day, and then I'm like, "Oh, right," 2 days later, I saw that text," and I go back and find it and respond.
I'll say this too with phone calls. If you call me back to back, I'm gonna instantly think it's way more urgent, so I'm way more
Yeah,
inclined to pick it up. Like if you
I
call me
agree.
back to back, it's like, oh, you got something to tell me. It's either really good or
Yep.
bad or like whatever it may be. It's more important.
And if I
Um,
don't know the phone number, there is 0% chance I'm picking up. Leave a voicemail, and I will immediately call you back. If I get a voicemail from a number, that usually means I should be picking up that call, so I call him back.
Or just text me. Like, if you don't want, if I don't have your number, just text me. If you
Yeah.
call me and say, "Hey, yo, this is insert X," pick up the phone, and then I'll be like, "Oh, okay, all right." Because
Yeah,
like
just
there are
text.
plenty of scenarios where that happens, especially when I worked in news. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
it happens all the time with people with different sources, with different people at certain places you call to get interviews from. Like, yeah,
agree.
without a doubt. Yeah, shout out to Reggie Bullock too. A little bit of an older head, so I get that why he likes phone calls.
Mhm, mhm. And, so, yeah, I mean, that's the way it is with Reggie Bullock. Apparently, he would prefer you to call him.
All right, leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We will read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, anywhere you find a podcast, you can find us.
Yes, and, like we said earlier, we are on YouTube if you want to, give us a follow. Driving Dish NBA, John just subscribed 2 days ago, so thank you for
All
being
right.
subscriber number 48. Or sorry, 49. We are looking for number 50 now. So if you wanna be
All right. It's big.
subscriber number
Zach
50,
Randolph. That's a great number.
it's a good number. So if you wanna be subscriber number 50, obviously hit us up. You can, be that number. It brings you no extra anything, other than bragging rights on our page. So
And now a word from our sponsors.
so we, got a pretty, I mean, big news drop during the middle of the week, with the Phoenix Suns and a independent investigation that was going on into Robert Sarver. Um, a lot of people, at least from an initial reaction standpoint, before we dive into the details of the whole thing, feel like the NBA's punishment is not enough. That is, at least from the views that I've been seeing. LeBron, Chris Paul has commented. Um, so here we are again. I want to say I'm not surprised because this has kind of been happening, which bothers me, obviously. But here we are again with somebody involved higher up in the NBA making comments that you shouldn't be making, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it certainly feels like that the response from the league has fallen short here. And I mean, it's interesting with Robert Sarver, number one, because I think Phoenix being good, going to the finals 2 years ago, winning 64 games last year, kind of masked this. Like this has been going on for a while.
Yeah.
There's always been reports of this. There's been a lot of people who just, I mean, A, off the pure incompetence of wanting him out. But then B, there's been a lot of whispers behind the scenes here. And again, this is all blown up. At Baxter on Twitter was the one who really did a lot of the reporting here and kind of brought this to the light. But yeah, it's kind of a hard sell for the NBA to keep Robert Sarver as the owner of the Phoenix Suns. And on top of that, the owner of the Phoenix Mercury as well, the WNBA team. When
That's a bigger
I
I
mean,
think that's even like I get it. Like there was everything he did was wrong, right? That they're saying in this investigation. But if there's like how are you going to be an owner of a WNBA team if you're coming out with like misogynistic comments?
Right, and it's just and how are you gonna be the owner of a team in a league that's majority African American when you're just
Right.
on the record saying the N word all the time? Like that should be enough to disqualify you right there. Just because you have the money to own something doesn't really give you the privilege to do so. And obviously the comparison is always with Donald Sterling and him getting booted from the Clippers. If Robert Sarver, it basically seems like the only difference here is that Robert Sarver wasn't on tape where Donald Sterling was. And then if Robert Sarver had said all this stuff on tape, then he would be out of here and they would have
Mhm.
made an exception. And I don't know. This was a little, it just was, it felt really like Adam Silver dropped the ball here. This is the first time where
I
it
saw
really just feels like he hasn't, like, I don't think he handled this correctly. Even the fine, like $10 million is a drop in the bucket for Robert Sarver. Like, it just doesn't really seem like he's learning any lesson here. He gets
well,
to keep the franchise. Like,
but
I don't
I
know.
guess the $10 million fine, I was reading about that. That's the max that they're permitted to do. Like, they can't apparently go higher. Um, so I guess, like, from that side of things, like, that's you know what I mean? Like, would I have liked it to be more or hurt him in his pocket a little bit more? Of course, but, I mean, if that's the rule, then that's the rule, you know?
I just
Um,
don't think you should be allowed to have the team. Like that's what it
I
comes
agree.
down to. Is I think that again, there are plenty of people out there, astoundingly, who can afford to buy the Phoenix Suns, who you just don't have to worry about with this.
Yeah,
Like I do think it's a privilege to own a professional sports franchise, and like this is just all on the record now. He basically like he was offensive to quite literally everyone. Like Phoenix
yeah.
should want him out of here. The vice chairman of Phoenix or the minority owner has called for it.
Let's
The NBA Players Association has called for it. Like you have leading figures. I mean, Chris Paul. How on earth is Chris Paul going to go back there and play it? And what does that look like now that he's called for this? Like, you got to get Sarver out of here. They didn't do enough. Like, it's just
well,
straight up. They did not do enough. What he says, his comments should be disqualifying from him from owning that franchise.
and I think, obviously players are saying what they say, and you can say all you want. But usually, and I hate that this is kind of like a theme. Usually there isn't a change or something doesn't happen until it starts affecting the money line of stuff. And now PayPal has come out. Obviously, we talked about that, or we can talk about that. Is if they come out and their contract with the team is up after next year, and they kind of said like, "Yo, if he's back, we're not." So
Yeah.
that I don't know how much that deal is, but it's got to be in the millions somewhere. So that's money that's going away. So I think maybe that has some kind of influence. Um, it's weird because it wasn't Chris Paul was with the Clippers when the Sterling stuff went down too,
Yeah, he
right?
was.
So
It
he's
is
now,
really
I mean,
unfortunate.
yeah, that's what I mean. He's got to deal with this twice now. Like, come on, poor, like, like that. It's just frustrating. That people can get into a situation where they feel like they're above certain stuff, but or can talk down to people. That's the other part of it. So
And it's all just so it's so comically laughable at this point. Like some of these things that are going on where it's like, dude, how did you think this is acceptable behavior at the workplace? Like he got into the shower and like made a comment at a woman where it's like, oh, there's something about like you never seen it this big or something like that. It's just like, yo, what are you doing,
dude,
guy? Like he was like
yeah,
how like when you at parties back in the day, there would always be that weird old dude who would like go up and just start like dancing on another dude like that, where it's like super broy and stuff. Like Sam Esfandiari on Twitter, he probably had the best. It sounds like it's season 2 of The Office. It's like, how is this
yeah.
person real right now in a corporate works? But that's also the more damning part too. Is like this didn't just happen. Like this wasn't some random one-off instance here.
They have
This
they
has
have
been going
more
on for
than
years.
they have more than this was, the NBA put this one out. They had to evaluate more than 80,000 documents and other materials, which were like emails, texts, videos. Like, dear Lord, that is a lot to go through. Which isn't like that's not a good sign to begin with. You know what I mean? Like if it's that many documents, dear Lord, So I mean, I don't feel like there's much more to say other than like I don't think this is over. Obviously, I think we'll go down the line with more demands of him being out. I think, and so we'll see if that is the direction he goes, they go, whatever the NBA goes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we'll see.
You kind of nailed it, though. It does, and it stinks that it's this way, but it does as soon as it starts affecting the money, and the money is already being
It's
affected.
stupid, but it
PayPal, like
is.
you mentioned, is already said they're not coming back next year if Sarver returns.
And
Like,
I would
he's
like to
suspended for
believe,
a year, so I think they have plenty of time to
right,
get this right. But
figure it
I
out.
think the NBA needs to make this better. I don't think this is what they
Well,
really. It's just a bad look for the league.
and I hope from the PayPal side of things, I hope there's not another company that's willing to just jump. You know what I mean? Like see the opening and go, oh, we'll fill that void. And then at least this way, maybe there is some potential for change.
No,
And
150,000. It's just there's better owners out there. Like there are better people who can own the team. People who are more willing that are just going to treat people with respect.
right,
It's just a simple thing. Like Robert Sarver was pretty disrespectful to everyone across the board.
yep,
You don't really. It's the thing. Owning a team is a privilege. Like I understand it's your money and you bought it, but it is like owning an NBA team. There's a code of conduct. There's a standard that you have to uphold. You don't just get to throw money at something and do whatever you want.
agreed.
Um, that's kind of the problem a lot of times in this country. All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like start with the good before the bad. So, Justin, I will start with you. Who was balling this week?
So an NBA executive poll has come out asking like which NBA player, young NBA player, they'd like to build around. And this year, there was a change. Surprisingly, Evan Mobley was the highest voted for player, passing Zion, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, Trey Young. Um, so shout out to Evan Mobley for being there. The Reddit that was posted asked if Evan Mobley's starting to be a bit overrated, but I don't think we need to go down that line. I just
Wait,
think
what's
this
the
is a
age
cool sign.
cutoff here for this?
I didn't see an age cutoff. It just said this was the poll.
I was gonna say, I wonder what the age is there because I'm like, if it's young players, I love Evan Mobley. Like, let me be as clear as possible. I really
Yeah.
like the kid, but no, it's Giannis or Luca. If I'm picking just anybody, because I think in those cases you have the best players and they're both really young, and
Hmm.
generally don't have a massive injury risk that you'd be worried about. I mean, I can think of tons of players I'd pick for Evan Mobley if it's just anybody. Like, I mean, Jokic, Embiid, Jason Tatum. I mean, and that's like John Morant. Like, that's not even really thinking that hard.
Yeah.
I think some of the older ones are a little more interesting, like with Kevin Durant, like with Steph Curry, just because it is age factors in at that
Sure.
point.
Sure.
With Kawhi, it's injuries. LeBron and age. So but with young guys, that's interesting. I mean, him jumping over Trey is a little surprising. And I love Evan Mobley again. I think he's already an elite defender. He's a big reason why I'm kind of bullish on that Cavs core. Like even before going to get Donovan Mitchell, like they really just nailed that pick. I think he should have won Rookie of the Year last year, in my opinion. But I mean, yeah, I get it if it's over like the other younger guys, like the Shea Gilgeous Alexanders of the world.
Hmm.
I mean, he was teammates, Darius Garlands of the world, the Jared Allens of the world. But if you're adding other, like if it's just every NBA player, then yeah, I'm not quite at that point.
Yeah, it doesn't. I'm surprised. It doesn't say there's no link on this one. It just says that the NBA execs came back. I wish I could find it, but I mean, I think it's a good sign. You got some younger guys on the list that are worth, and I just think it's crazy the talent level that I feel like you could argue for so many players right now to want to build around, and
Yeah,
it almost goes down to your core of how you feel like you as a person want to approach the NBA game, right? Like how do you want to be a 3-point team? Do you want to be defensive team? Do you want to be, just bigger than everybody team, So
yeah.
I think that's a big part of it too.
The NBA has more talent now than it's ever had at any given point in history. I mean, you can legitimately look at every team in the league and they all have at least one good player, at least
Yep.
somebody who is a good NBA starter, has some young upside that you would build around that has potential. Um, Every single one, even the teams that are quote unquote going to be bad this year. Like I know he's hurt, but Chet Holmgren and
Yep.
OKC, they've got Lou Dort, they've got Shea Gilgeous Alexander, they've got Josh Giddey. Like those are all good young
Fun
players.
guys.
Houston's got Jabari Smith, who they just took. They've got Şengün, Jalen Green still too.
Yep.
Obviously Detroit's got Cade among others. Orlando's got Franz among others. Paulo Banchero, the number one pick this year. Indy's still got Miles Turner. They've got Halliburton now. Like the only one who I think I might be a little iffy on is I'm like, I don't know who's really that good there is San Antonio right now. San Antonio was trading DeJounte Murray, and I'm sure that Pop will dig some guy out. That's the thing is like I have faith in them to
Yeah.
find somebody that's good this year,
Yeah.
to develop somebody that will at least have some upside there. I would say the same thing with Utah. Generally, they have guys that they have guys they're going to trade too. But they now with them getting Sexton, if Sexton comes back and plays this year, I'm intrigued in Colin Sexton. Like I would think he's a good player worth watching.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's not as high star potential as some of the guys that are on other teams, but he's still somebody that is
Right.
exciting to watch.
Right. There's a reason to watch,
Yeah.
well, at least almost every team in the NBA
There
right
is a
now.
reason to
I
watch
guess
his
reasons for
highlights.
watching good players are different. Put
There
it that
is
way.
there is
'Cause,
a
like,
reason to watch a Jazz highlight that pops up on ESPN at some point.
yeah, like let me get the Colin Sexton mixtape, and that's good.
Right. We'll call it a
Same with
day.
Indy and Halliburton. Just give me the Halliburton highlights.
Right.
All right, balling for me is ongoing Eurobasket. So in this case specifically, it is our finals of Spain and France. Spain took out Germany 96-91. France just steamrolled Poland 95-54. Poland had upset Luka and Slovenia in the previous round. So no, yeah, you got your final here now. It's set. That's actually tipping off later today. So by next episode, we'll be able to recap that a little bit. Again, the third place game, Germany and Poland. Pretty exciting tournament overall, though. A lot of NBA talent here in the finals, of course. Spain's a pretty traditional Euro basket powerhouse. Obviously, Rudy Gobert leading France. He's been awesome in this tournament, especially. Really, they've been losing the minutes with him off the floor. But should be a fun finals. I'm excited to tune in.
Yeah, I saw the video of Giannis getting the team getting knocked out and him actually being kicked out of the game for a pretty rough foul. It didn't look like it was intentional, but contact with the head, you gotta do that. And I think it was Giannis's brother was really emotional after the game. It was crazy.
Yeah, they love playing for Greece. Like that's the
Yeah.
thing is you got to give them credit because Giannis, especially, is somebody like to put it bluntly. I don't know how much the Bucks want Giannis probably playing for
Business
Greece as much as he
decisions
does.
need to be made.
Here's the thing: Giannis is always going to do it. Like that's been his identity. He's proud of his Greek heritage, like a lot. And I like the guys going to play for their countries if they really want to. I'm always gonna. That's kind of the same way I feel with the pro-ams too. It's like I'm never going to go against guys who just want to go out and play basketball, and especially in the case of the pro-ams too. Like everybody clearly points to the Chet Holmgren injury, but it's like
Right.
it was such a fun, positive event before that. Like obviously there's that risk, but there's that kind of inherent risk with daily life, right? Like
Yeah.
I think if you get the chance to more people to watch you play basketball, you take it. I don't think you can really knock it. And I think you can refine your craft. Like, I think you obviously have to be situational about it. Like, if Giannis had just made 4 straight finals runs, then it'd be like, yeah, you know what? Maybe you should wait till the Olympics and not just play the random Eurobasket tournament.
Take a break. Yeah. Well, and
no,
it's
I'm
like
never
one of
gonna
those
knock
things,
them. Those guys
I mean,
international.
like you said, anything can happen. Even you could be bowling and mess up your knee for all you know.
And look at Luka. I think the Eurobasket. That's where Luka really broke in, and where guys said, "Yo, this kid's the real deal." Like that was a big one. Look at for somebody like Franz Wagner, who this has looked like a breakout tournament for him. Like that experience does matter for an extent too. And Dennis Schroeder, who we'll get into a little bit here with the Lakers after we wrap up this segment, but he quite literally played himself back into the league. Essentially, he bet on himself, and now has a contract for next year.
Yeah, and betting on himself in the past hasn't always worked in his favor.
No,
but
this one is the first time. But it's good.
This one's a good for him. So, my fallen, I guess we'll transition is Doc Rivers. His Twitter was hacked. For anybody not watching the video, I'm quote tweeting hacked. I don't know if I fully believe it that it was hacked. But his Twitter was liking some interesting NSFW posts on social media, or specifically Twitter. And let's just say, all right, Doc.
My guys, my girls, whatever you like on Twitter can be seen by everyone else.
Yes.
If you like that porn tweet, somebody's going to see it. Even without having to go into the likes, it may pop up. You are not slick. You are not low.
We quite literally we have a friend. I really hope he doesn't listen to this podcast. We have a friend that likes sometimes likes tweets that are close to what Doc was liking, and we have an entire group chat on Twitter dedicated to screenshotting the ones that he likes that pop up on our page because he liked them.
We have so many. Dude, I've had coworkers who have had that talk,
Oof.
namely older ones who don't quite get it. Um,
Yeah.
One of the wildest things that was ever happened to me on Twitter, and this is when I was back in Jacksonville. I actually was filling in. So I'd worked in Orlando at the time. I was filling in for the week. And so I was up in Jacksonville, and one of the listeners tweeted me and said, "Oh man, so great to have Kevin Ravens back for the week." And it was really thoughtful. It made my morning. I was super excited about it. I was like, "Oh, it's awesome, man. Let me click their profile." Dude, I clicked
Oh,
their profile and it was a mistake. It was just it was so hardcore. Like it was just like I was at work. I was like, "Oh my God, all right, all right." Like,
yeah.
oh man, what a bit of a letdown to say the least.
So yeah, that according to what has come out since, Doc was informed from a friend about the bizarre activity on his
Yeah.
account, and the 76ers team took care of it, and he is no longer hacked.
Just oh my god, just get off Twitter too for most of it. I don't even oh god. Everyone can see it. It's always just a reminder. You are not slick. Falling for me this week, and I gotta be honest, I'm stretching it a little bit. Is Gary Payton. Gary Payton the second had abdominal surgery. And so the fallen is the sense that probably wasn't fun. He's got a little bit of recovery right now. But the good news is he's going to be ready for the beginning of the regular season. It doesn't look like he's going to miss any time for Portland. So all seems well on that front.
Well, and Portland's one of those teams that we want to see have a bounce back year. So having all your guys available at the beginning is probably what you need. So we'll see where they go this year. I think they're one of the bigger, I guess, question mark teams going into the season.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm going that far. In what context?
I feel well because they're like trying to do this rebuild, but it's not a rebuild. You know what I mean? Like they're not fully. They didn't dive into the deep end of a rebuild. They kind of went in the shallow end, and it's a bold move. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't work, I think people are going to be upset they didn't dive fully into the deep end of the pool. So
100%.
that's why I think they're a big question mark going into next season. If they come out and they lose the first 5 games, I think Trailblazer fans are going to be like, "Oh, this is horrible. We're terrible." You know, like
I mean, Dame just said he wants to be in Portland for life again
yeah.
on an interview this week,
He can
but
say it as much as he wants, but the second someone's like, "Oh, you should go to the Lakers,"
no, but
it'll be
it's not even about that, in my opinion. It's about the fact that, like, at some point, it's probably mutually beneficial for them to break up.
that's
Like, for
fair.
Portland's sake, too. I get that you want to keep Damian Lillard forever because you just don't get like they don't grow on trees. You don't just magically get guys that have meant that much to your franchise for a long because he does because Dame's impact and what he means is well beyond obviously just X's and O's and basketball
Right.
courts and made baskets and moments. Like Damian Lillard has really embraced being a part of that Portland community, and that is important. Um, but yeah, if they don't rebuild well, then I think the calls for people to trade Dame so that they can just get a proper rebuild going may be higher.
Mhm.
Or you just hope that Dame would maybe take a pay cut if he really wants to stay there like that. But um, because I mean, it is like the best way, like trading Damian Lillard would be the best way to springboard a rebuild. Like Dame would go, like every team in the league that is serious about contending would take a look at trading for Dame right now. So, I mean, Lord knows they tried to the past couple of years when it looked like he may actually leave, but I mean, he's there until further notice. And I do think Portland is going to be better. I'm just not really that intrigued by them, to put it bluntly. I think it's kind of like Portland's fully in the prove me wrong territory. Like I want them to be good because I like that fan base and I love the narratives around them. But it's just I've seen these kind of partial resets a lot with them. It feels like it's been three
Yeah,
or four times now, and it's just
that's right.
hasn't worked out. Now they have I like some of their guys who are younger this time. Like Anthony Simons, for example, I'm really high on. Like, I think he's a good young player. I think he can kind of do what CJ did a little bit. I think that's a big reason they were able to move on from CJ so easily is because of Simons breaking out. But I am interested to see what they do, because I think they're one of the potential blow it up teams. The more intriguing teams for me are, the Brooklyns of the world. I think Denver, now that they're healthy, is intriguing. I think the Clippers, now that they're healthy, are more intriguing. And then kind of like, I think the East as a whole is the top of the East really is. I think Atlanta with new faces, Cleveland with new faces. Um, really the top four, even with not quite to that extent, but like the Sixers have some new guys in there. You want to see if the Harden fall off is real, to put it bluntly, see what he has left in the tank. For Miami, can they keep this going? Can Kyle Lowry bounce back? Boston and Milwaukee are kind of more, I think they're more just guaranteed, if you will. Like, I think they have a lot more of their floor is a lot higher than some of these other
You know
teams,
what you're
but
getting, yeah.
and even other like Toronto. Is Toronto going to crash the party again? They kind of it feels like they went gangbusters last year in the Eastern Conference. Not a lot of people picked it for them to be a down year, and then it wasn't at all.
Mhm.
So I just don't have Portland because I don't think they'll be as good as some of those teams I just mentioned.
That's fair. No, I get it. So,
I would
the
argue too that the Lakers, who we're about to get into here with them bringing Dennis Schroeder back on a 1-year deal, I would argue that they're more intriguing just because of what this looks like for Russell Westbrook, what Anthony Davis looks like at this point. That to me is the most intriguing part of Laker ball is Anthony Davis. Like
yeah.
Anthony Davis has dealt with, honestly, like, you want to talk about, if there's one person who's probably benefited from Russell Westbrook being in LA, it's Anthony Davis, because it shielded him from a lot of criticism that he would be getting otherwise, because he just hasn't been able to stay healthy and he hasn't been the guy. Like, we keep
Yeah.
making the analogy, but LeBron was supposed to pass the torch to Anthony Davis, and it's been LeBron still needing to be a superhuman for them to keep winning games.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna be a big tell is what we'll find in the first bit of the season with the Lakers. Like, I feel like we'll get a read on how Anthony Davis can bounce back, where they are as a team in general, like what they do with Westbrook. I think it's gonna be a big tell with the bunch of point guards they have now, which is what you alluded to us talking about here in a second. So I think that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, because that's the thing now is you wonder, with bringing Russ off the bench, so you brought Pat Beverly in, you brought Dennis Schroeder in. There are worlds where you could sell me on starting those two and then bringing Russ off the bench. Now, obviously, Schroeder's had a ton of success as a sixth man in the past and
Mhm.
kind of fits that like gunner archetype where he just comes in and can get you a bucket if you need it. But I would be interested, and honestly, bringing Russ off the bench, I think that's where you can let him run. Like, there are still offenses that I think can work for Russell Westbrook. And I think when you let him run the show, some good things can happen. I just think you need to limit the quantities of it. And that's
Yeah.
if you can get him to buy into coming off the bench, I would definitely chance it.
Yeah, I agree, and like with the Schroeder fit, Darvin Ham and him, spent time together. I think it was like 5 seasons in Atlanta, so they're familiar with each other, and Schroeder played well in those 5 seasons in Atlanta. So maybe we see something like that happen. I just wonder from a Westbrook side of things, are we going to get a potential like Carmelo Anthony reaction where he's like, I'm not a sixth man, like I don't come off the bench, I don't do that type situation. So
Well,
I
and
don't
that's
know.
always been the pushback in the past, right? Is that Russ
Mhm,
has never really adjusted his game like that. Russ
mhm.
has always been, very headstrong. Now, Carmelo Anthony did eventually adjust his game.
Yeah,
Obviously, he came back in Portland and, staying here with the Lakers has just had a lot of success since coming back in his new role. I think if Russ adjusts that they're like, I'm not one of these people who's suggesting that Russ is about to wash out of the league or something like
yeah,
that. Like, Russell Westbrook can still play basketball. I just think if he's going to be on a contender, if he's going to be at a higher level team that's going to really try to get this ring, because Russ has nothing left to prove. Russell Westbrook is a Hall of Famer. Like,
yeah.
he's had an incredible career. MVP got to be close to a dozen All-Star appearances, it feels like at this point. Like, there's nothing left to prove on that front. But if you want to contribute on a winning basketball team, then yeah, I think he has to like really
Adjust.
take a look at his role. And I think that's a way where you can probably prolong your career here a little bit, because it is.
I
The
agree.
unfortunate reality is like Russ was always one of those players where when the athleticism went, the game would go a little bit, because he was never a great shooter. A lot of, especially in his case, his game was predicated on I'm faster than you and I'm going to attack you at all times. Like, Russell
Mhm.
Westbrook was just constantly pressing the gas pedal no matter what. and unfortunately, like, Father Time is undefeated. He can't just quite, you can still get the car up to 65, but you may not be running at, 180, which is what it felt like. At 65 feels a little disrespectful. Let's say you get up to like 120. That's a standard car. But you're not hitting 200 like you were at one point.
Right.
But I think he can come off the bench and have success. They're clearly trying to go in on defense, which I think is the key for the Lakers. Like when the Lakers won the title, they were the best defensive team in the league. I think Anthony Davis's health, assuming health, which again is a huge if, that could instantly improve it right there, just off rip. That would be a massive improvement.
Yeah.
Obviously, Pat Bev is a lot better on the perimeter than Russ is at this point. Because I don't think Russ is a great defender, but I think he can get by a little bit. I want to see the effort. I want to see Russ in a role that is going to tailor to his strengths and allow him to be aggressive. Because I think he was in his own head by the end of the season. I think whatever they need to do, they need to make sure his head's in the right place, or it is going to be a disaster like it was last year. Like you could just see it. You could see it in the body language. And part of that is on Russ too. Russ can't pout. Like this just it's a hard acceptance. Like I'm saying this all like this is something that just easily happens. Like, no, it's an extremely, difficult concept. It took Carmelo Anthony 3 years, basically. I mean, he was all but out of the league for 2 seasons. But it's still like it's salvageable for Russell Westbrook.
Right. It can turn around, like you said, if the coaching is good enough to put him in situations where he can succeed with his skill set, then we'll be fine here,
It really comes down to the question. I think of Iverson. Westbrook's at 9 All-Star appearances, by the way, not quite at a dozen yet. But I look with Iverson where it just flamed out so quickly because he never adjusted. And it just was over. He was in Detroit for a little bit. He was in Memphis. That flamed out. He came back for the Sixers for a reunion. It was really fun for like 3 games, and then it
was he on the Nuggets?
was over. Oh, he was on the Nuggets initially when he got traded, but he was still good for a little bit with the Nuggets. When him and Carmelo Anthony were like, he was still kind of good, but like when it fell off, it fell off.
Yeah.
Like Russell Westbrook last year, even in his horrible year when everyone was down on him, averaged 18.5 points, 7 rebounds, or 7.5 rebounds and 7 assists. Like
a lot of teams
I think there are ways, there are ways to, take his skill set and, have him make plays and be a playmaker. I do, though. I think you just need to stagger the minutes, and I think you need to find where it works. And I think you need to get him to accept, too, that he's probably not going to be in at the end of games. That's the big thing, too, is I don't think Russ is going to be a part of closing lineups. That's not the end of the world. Like, not everybody is meant to be a closer. You need to win those other minutes, too. I just think, like, that's ways to make it less of a disaster, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I still don't think the Lakers, I think they're making moderate improvements next year unless Anthony Davis is back fully healthy. But I think that, because eventually this Westbrook contract is going to expire. I don't think he's going to bounce out of the league. I think what happens this year is going to be a lot to determine, what Russell Westbrook's future looks like in the NBA. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys. I'm still semi in shock about Pirtle, by the way. I'm really like, I'm floored. I really just can't believe that it was first guess again with no silhouette. I figured that was the way to make it bulletproof. And now we're at a point where we may just have to retire it already. I don't know. Maybe let us know. Tweet us if you think we should give it a redemption shot or not next week.
There's no way if we do it next week, we get it on the first try.
You say that, and then we're going to do it. Like, I don't know, man. I'm a little jaded. I'm a little, I just want to play some Pirtle, man. That's all I want to do.
I guess.
Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We will read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Stitcher, iHeart, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep, and be sure to check, see if Zay Jones got that first touchdown against the Jags against the Colts. If he did, I'm 2 for 2 now on my my random sports bets. But you can follow us on YouTube. Just hit Drive and Dish NBA on YouTube. We are looking for subscriber number 50. So we are working our way up the little charts here. So if you would like to be 50, feel free to hit us up, and we'll be back next week with another episode.